I'm Viktor Krauss. Thanks for checking this out. A number of months ago, did a video showing my kind of elaborate setup for the upright bass in very loud conditions. Over the years, I've ended up putting more and more stuff on the front of here just in order to be able to be as loud and cover all the frequencies possible that's not necessarily available only on one pickup. Down here, I've got this elaborate board here that pretty much routes all the mess that's on the front here. You know, it's a bit of an investment, and it's a lot of trial and error, and I think it's been helpful for some that have tuned into that, for just being able to get something that works for them, especially in a loud setting. Today, I thought we would do away with the board here, for those who are maybe just using one pickup or don't want to necessarily get into all of this. So I'm going to take away the pedal board and then use just one pickup with a very small amplifier. Doing this, putting a pickup on an acoustic instrument, is tricky. Again, you can't really cover everything that you would love to have happen with the instrument. And there are problems with it, especially with using one pickup, and then how close you are to the amp. We'll talk about proximity, talk about EQ in terms of battling feedback issues. So in a small setting, let's say you're playing a club date or rehearsal or anything that you don't necessarily want to bring a giant stack with you. I've got this old Galen-Kruger from the 90s, just a single 12. It doesn't have a huge amount of EQ with it, but it's still really good. One of the things that I tell students a lot of the time when they're working with a small setup and maybe just one pickup is the placement of the amp. It's crucial that you don't necessarily have it, right there, for a number of reasons. Is that your leg isn't going to hear as well as your as your ears. So right here, it invites a couple of problems with how a feedback loop can start with just having the speaker then go into the body of the instrument. There'll be low-end feedback rumble, which you don't want. For me, with any amp, if it's this size or something much bigger, you want to have it, for one, be as close to your ear as you possibly can. In this case, since it's so small, just put it on a chair, have it angled, like a PA wedge. So what you're hearing is going to be aimed here. Another problem with having it on the floor is that depending on the material of the stage itself, like a wood stage and it's not completely solid, meaning that it's a hollow stage, the stage itself will become this additional source of resonance, a lot of the time making the low-end information a bit more complex. So a lot of the time when I walk into a venue, I'll just tap my foot on the floor and seeing, okay, I've got to get the amp off the stage as far as I can. If you're carrying a large amplifier, a lot of the time, if you've got control over the lower cabinet, sometimes it's best to attenuate that cabinet, let that almost be as a stand for your upper cabinet, just allowing the low end information to become as pitch centered as you can. Again, so if you're on the floor, a lot of the time your center of pitch can be confused by just the resonance on the stage. Concrete floor is a lot better, and then just by tapping the floor, a lot of the time you can tell, okay, going to have a problem. Okay, another thing is proximity. How you have the instrument set up. Each playing scenario has its own obstacles and parameters. I like to start with an amp as much to the ribs of the instrument as opposed to the back, because we're dealing with the least amount of mass. If you go to here, then it's going to go, it's just going to start feeding back. If you're here, then it's a smaller area that it has less opportunity. And it's the same thing with your body placed in front of it. You are then actually kind of almost putting like a baffle here. If you put your body here, then you're almost covering the amp being able to get into the instrument. So you'll probably find with, where you're placed, even if you have to turn up as loudly as you can kind of sense it starting to feed back. If you go here, you'll start to lose that. I'll demonstrate that by turning on the amp. So automatically, if I turn, you're going to lose some of that. And, even more with your body attached to it. So I'm making this amp beg for mercy at at that level, but just to demonstrate that. Again, with the EQ, so let's see how loud I can go. So it's starting to lift off a little bit in the lower range, so it's pretty simple, just in terms of letting that go. Let me get in front of it. And then you just look for the upper frequency, and then so I'm pretty close to it, but just being aware of how close and what I need to do with my body to not get this. Yeah, so just actually attenuating those two frequencies, now I'm in pretty good shape. Another trick you can do is, what I always like to do is hit the side so we can hear that a really high pitch, you can hear that the actual tone. So again, try to find out where that is, and again, this amp doesn't have a lot of EQ. So now it's gone. So you're just being kind of recognizing that it's either super high or it's mid or low. And then I've got it up really loud. So, that's what the Underwood pickup. If I switch to the Fishman, which is this one right here, it's going to be a lot brighter. So some of the fun is away. So seems like I could actually bring back some of the high end, and then you just kind of wait for it to take off. Yeah, there it is again. So why I'm doing the chromatic scale, this will make your sound person really happy a lot of the time, and this also for your for front of house, is if you kind of do a slow chromatic scale, you'll be able to hear what is necessarily jumping out in terms of the house or with the amp. So if I nothing's jumping out yet. So this is a bad example because nothing is jumping out actually, but I found that a lot of the time going to a certain venue, you start playing something and then something makes the house shake, or the amp rattle, or it sets the snare drum off, or or whatever. A lot of the time, if you take just a minute to see if something is causing, with the critical band or whatever it is called, making the whole room resonate, it's nice to try to pull that out if you can. I always like having the amp, again, for the same reason with on the ribs, to have it go toward you this way, almost acting like a side fill for the drummer, for yourself. So just kind of perpendicular stage as opposed to outward. The more you pull it outward, the quicker that the front of house is going to say, you know, you need to turn down. And I always like it saying, people saying, oh, you need to turn up, but that really happens. So this is the Underwood pickup. I like this pickup a lot for an amp because it's got a really pointed mid-range. Mid-range is such your friend for survival, for pitch. A lot of the time I'm looking for something that's either bright or does have upper mid-range. With pickups and amplification, you can always add low end where it's harder to add high end or mid-range. Usually you end up then kind of kicking up the frequencies that are problematic to begin with and just hiss and noise. This is the Beasley magnetic pickup, which is wonderful for all the low end information. It's pretty much turning your bass into a giant P bass. It gets super loud. It's almost impossible for it to feed back. I always use this in conjunction with the Underwood pickup right here. By itself, it's, you know, it's immediately got, like, I'm all the way, you know, and it's, you know, so it's just like instant strength. Yeah, I love it, you know, and on occasion I'll, you know, with the thing that I use on stage, that the big elaborate pedal board, I'll use a mixer dialing in between a couple of things if I wanted to sound more electric, or if I'm doing stuff, you know, it's a little bit more funky. Sometimes it's nice to bring this one in and then have this behave more like an electric bass. Right here, this contact point is BP 100, which still, after all these years, is still my favorite one. Just in terms of the detail, it's the most shapeable pickup to me, where you can just EQ it and it will work with you right away. I know a lot of people use this pickup with like the Realist or even the Fishman Full Circle, which are fantastic, I think even more authentic sounding, less electric sounding. And then just right here, which is the Ear Trumpet Labs Nadine, which is a fantastic mic